Hi. In this video, we will talk about Schwarz-Kirschhoff formula. So we have already seen the Riemann map, so which gives you a conformal mapping of any simply contour domain, which is not the Hall complex plane, onto the unit disk, open unit disk. Okay. And we have also seen how to extend this conformal mapping to the boundary of the region, the simply contour region. For example, we did that if you have a boundary consisting of a free one-sided arc, then we can extend into that boundary part. Similarly, what we do, so in some sense, it tells you that you can extend to any polygonal lines. Okay, so now in this case, what we are going to obtain, we are going to obtain an inverse formula for the inverse of this Riemann map from a particular region onto the open unit disk. So let us begin with this case. I mean, you consider a domain, simply contour region, which is of this form. I mean, it's a polygonal region. I mean, it has a boundary which is a polygon. Okay. So what we do, we first, so we know that we can extend the Riemann map to these lines, the boundary lines. Okay, but we don't know whether we can extend to the vertices on the boundary. Okay, so that's what we do first. Okay, so first we assume that these vertices of this polygonal region is denoted by Z1, Z2 up to Zn, and at a vertex Zk, so you have an interior angle and an exterior angle. The interior angle is denoted by alpha k pi, and the exterior angle by beta k pi. So with the obvious condition that beta k is 1 minus alpha k. Okay. Now we see that so you start from some consecutive vertices xk minus 1, xk, and xk plus 1. So the angle is the interior angle is given by argument of zk minus 1 minus zk by zk plus 1 minus zk. So we are denoting this by alpha k pi. Now, yeah, so the outer angle by beta k pi. So now what happens? The sum of the angle is pi. I mean, sum of the outer angle is pi. Therefore, beta 1 pi, etc. plus beta n pi is pi. Therefore, sum of beta I equal to 2. So the boundary behavior we discussed in the last video enable us to extend the Riemann map fz on omega to each of these boundary lines. Okay. Now, what we do, and the extension is 1-to-1, that is what we have seen. So we are going to see that the extension is possible to the vertex also. Okay. So what we do here, yeah, we consider a vertex and SK be the disk around the vertex intersection with omega. Okay, that means that is this region, circular region. Okay, so SK looks like this. ZK is a vertex K. So now consider a single valued branch of the function zeta z is equal to z minus zk power 1 by alpha k. So remember, zk is not part of this region, therefore this never vanishes. Therefore, you have a single valued branch of this 1 by alpha k, just like the square root function. Okay, so this map sk onto the half disk sk pi. Okay, because you know that so here in sk, the argument of z minus z0 varies from 0 to alpha k pi. So its image argument will vary from 0 to pi. So it will map onto some half disk. So that we denote by sk prime. Now consider the map which sends zeta to zk plus zeta power alpha k. Okay. So what we do, we just take the alpha k power here and add zk. So you are getting back z. So this is a map from sk prime to omega. So it is the other way. So choose a suitable branch for this map, sk prime to omega. So it will land in sk because it is like the inverse of that. So now the map G from sk prime to, so the open unit is what we do, we compose this map with your f. F is already there, I mean the Riemann map f. So you compose this map with f. So you get a G. G is the composition of these two maps. It is from SK prime to the open unit disk. So this is analytic in SK prime because G is F is analytic and this map is analytic. Okay, so it's a composition of analytic maps. Now, if zeta tends to the diameter of the half disk SK prime, remember G is defined on SK prime now. SK prime is a half disk. So if it tends to the half boundary, then in the previous theorem we proved that under a topological mapping, if something tends to boundary, its image will also tend to the boundary. So what happens? G zeta will tend to the boundary of the unit circle. That means mod G zeta will tend to 1 as zeta tends to the diameter. Then what happens? Yeah. Now we have G satisfies the required condition to apply the reflection principle now, because it is a function defined on the upper half, say one half disk, and on the diameter the limit axis, and all other conditions are the same. So applying reflection principle, you can obtain an extension of G to the whole disk. Okay, so this is the pictorial representation. You have SK here. It is via the map zeta. It is mapped onto the upper half disk. Some half disk SK prime. So from here, via this map, it is mapped here, and from here G will map into the open unit. G is the composition of this with F. Okay. Now G is defined here. So the conditions for reflection principle is satisfied. So you can extend to the whole disk. So as Z tends to Zk, so you can see that zeta tends to 0. That means Z comes here, means zeta goes to 0. So, and therefore mod G zeta tends to 1 because it is 0 is in the boundary. Therefore F of this thing tends to the absolute value of this tends to the 1. Therefore that means this is Z actually. So a mod F of Z tends to 1. That means as Z tends to Zk, mod of Z tends to 1. Therefore that limit is a value in the unit circle. So limit Z tends to Zk, F of Z is equal to some omega k, which is denoted by e raised to I theta k. So now consider the lines on the boundary of omega meeting at Zk. That means these two lines meeting at Zk. So they are at angle alpha k pi. So you denote them by L1 and L2. F of L1 will be, see, we have already seen that the image of this line will be on the unit circle. So this is gamma 1 and gamma 2. They are arcs on the unit circle. So now what happens? Yeah. So here is an angle, the image of L1, and here is the image of gamma 2. Now as Z tends to Zk via L1, F of Z will tend to omega k. That means gamma 1 will go to omega k. And as Z tends to Zk via L2, then also F of Z should go to omega k. That means gamma 2 should converge to omega. So the image of this should meet at the point omega k. So therefore gamma 1 and gamma 2 have a common endpoint at omega k. Now notice that F is 1, 1 on omega union L1 as well as omega union L2. So therefore, as Z moves in the positive direction, Fz should also move in the positive direction in the unit circle. Therefore, gamma 1 and gamma 2 cannot intersect. That is trivial from the 1-1s. Hence, we showed that the image of the boundary lines are arcs on the unit circle, which are disjoint and leave no gap. They meet at the point omega k. So this is what we need. Now, one particular thing to apply reference principle rigorously, so which I mentioned just now. So we use that mod Gz tends to 1 as I tends to diameter. That implies that Gz not equal to 0. So you can define a branch of log Gz and apply reference principle to make it rigorous. Okay. Now, with this preliminaries, that means this tells you that we can extend your map, Riemann map, to the whole boundary, provided the boundary is kind of polygon. Okay. So now what we do, we compute the formula for the inverse of this map. You define Z equal to capital F of omega, which map the open unit disk conformally onto the polygon with angles alpha k pi. So my claim is that they are of this function is of the form C into this integral plus C prime. So where omega k's are the points on the unit circle, and beta k and alpha k are as defined. Now the proof is not that difficult. As we noticed above, log Gz has a branch near the diameter of SK prime. Just the same notation which we used just now. So log gz is 1, 1 near the diameter. I mean the extended function. It is 1, 1. So log gz cannot have a derivative 0 at psi equal to, theta equals 0. But if g dash 0 equals 0, then log g, so it will have a derivative 0. So g dash 0 not equals 0. Okay. Since g dash 0 not equals 0, now you consider the Taylor series of g theta around 0. G theta is by definition it is f of this thing. So now we consider its Taylor series expansion. Look at that. G theta is of this form. Since g0 not equals 0, you have non-zero value here. So I mean g dash 0 not equals 0. You have a1 not equals 0. That's it. So g dash 0 not equals 0. You have a1 not equals 0. So we can invert. So whenever a1 not equals 0, we can invert the series. So you can write omega equal to f of zk plus zeta power alpha k. Then theta is equal to summation. I mean, by inverting, you will get something like this. G map 0 to omega k from here. G map 0 to omega k. This is something we know. And therefore, G dash map omega k to, G inverse map omega k to 0. So G inverse has a Taylor series with respect to omega k. You write that Taylor series with the first coefficient will be 0 because G inverse at omega k will be 0. Therefore, B naught will be 0. So that's why you have the inverse Taylor series expansion starting from m equal to 1 to infinity. Okay. Also, B1 not equal 0 because the derivative will not vanish at omega k. That is trivial. So therefore, omega equal to f of zk plus this thing, which implies f of omega equal to see f of omega. F is the capital F is the inverse of small f. So if you apply f, you will get the argument here zk plus this. So f of omega is this. Now f of omega minus zk is this, which is theta is this. So theta power alpha k. So if you expand this, what you obtain is that it will be omega minus omega k power alpha k into some gk omega, where gk omega is analytic and non-zero at omega k. So now what we do, f of omega minus zk is equal to this into omega minus omega k power alpha k into gk omega, where gk omega is analytic and non-zero at near omega k. So f dash omega will be equal to, you just take the derivative here, that is alpha k into omega minus omega k power alpha k minus 1 in gk omega, and you just expand this, and finally you'll obtain that f dash omega into omega minus k power beta k is equal to this quantity. Okay, since beta k equal to 1 minus alpha. So this is analytic, and with the property this is analytic and non-zero at omega k, because on the right hand side is non-zero and analytic at the. So you have a function which is analytic and non-zero. So you consider that function. So this is the property at near omega k. Now what we do it for every k and take the product. Now my claim is that h omega defined by f dash omega into product omega minus omega k power beta k is analytic and non-zero in the closed universe. So now this is rather easy, yeah, because it is a product of this thing. F dash omega is non-zero always. So h omega is non-zero because these are non-zero. I mean, that's it. So we have seen this. Now what happens? Yeah. Now we are going to prove that h omega is a constant. So that's it. So the proof is very simple. First you start from omega equal. See, remember omega varying on the unit circle now. So you consider omega equal to e raised to I theta, where omega lies between some omega k and omega k plus 1 in this way. So omega k is e raised to I theta k and omega k plus 1 equal to e raised to I theta k. So argument of f dash omega equal to the angle between the tangents at omega to the unit circle and the tangent at f omega to the image. So that is trivial from the definition of derivative. I mean, I have explained it here. So since the image of the unit circle under f is the boundary of the polygon, that means boundary is mapped onto the boundary. The argument between omega k and omega k plus 1 is a line. The arc between omega k and omega plus 1 is a line. So side of the polygon. So argument of that line is constant. Okay. So argument of the tangent to the unit circle at e raised to theta is theta plus pi by 2. So this is the angle here. Now what happens? So taking everything into consideration, you obtain that argument of f dash omega is minus theta minus pi by 2 plus constant, and omega minus omega chi is this, and you compute this argument. This argument is theta by 2 plus constant. So therefore, argument of h omega is argument of f dash omega plus sum of these arguments. Then with this simple computation and using the fact that summation of beta k equal to 2, you'll obtain that argument of h omega is a constant for mod omega equal to 1. Because we have taken an omega on the unit circle and proved that it will look like a constant like this. And this is constant between omega k and omega k plus 1. But by continuity of argument, you will get that it is constant everywhere on the unit circle. Okay. Now we have already noted that h omega is analytic and non-zero. So yeah. So what happens is that you can consider log h omega, and argument of h omega is the imaginary part of that. So you will obtain that that's a constant. Therefore, log h omega is a constant. Therefore, h omega is a constant. So that is. So yeah, one point I missed here. Argument of h omega is a constant on the unit circle. So it is constant everywhere by the maximum principle. That is also important. Okay. So because maximum is attained on the unit circle. Okay. Maximum and minimum it attained on the boundary. So h omega is a constant. Therefore, f dash. So this is h omega. This is constant, and just by integration you will obtain that the Schwarzschild formula. So that's all for the time.